And we're back.
She's from Arya Samaj.
If they keep this up for very much longer, people are gonna freak out.
What kind of parties?
Come together in their little hot boxes.
What do you think of Jen?
Everything she does and says is that she's just too smart for everyone.
How would we get done with your bullshit?
The principles are on the edges. You're either a tolerant Greek or a moralizing Jew.
He'll regret trolling me like that. This level of shitty fucking behavior.
So that's why we're all here, and that's probably why I haven't listened to the news in 2 days.
Global homo dictatorship, brother fly.
So she didn't prove reincarnation. If it's faith, that's not proof.
I need people's minds on certain problems where I might lack knowledge.
Are you gonna stop? Because as far as I'm concerned, I can skewer you right now and you have zero recourse. This is all happening on my turf, but you owe me.
You're
I'm saying that the hormones change.
No, seriously.
The exoteric dictator cannot make mistakes. Ruling people is not about being better than them. It's about service.
You don't get to tell me how to act.
There's probably a nice person who lives across the street.
You're obsessed with Jen and it's all creepy, and you have the audacity called me a weirdo.
It's all so surreal.
This is just awful.
Alright, so you aired that part out, dude.
Nice to see everyone. Welcome to the show. Time for an impromptu chat with friend of the show, SupraLibrix, who's here to discuss, the big questions. The small questions and all the questions in between. So you had been sharing your ideas with me privately before we went live, and you were asking me what I call something. So why don't you tell the audience what was the something, and I'll try to take a crack at an answer.
All right. As I was working up the math, and that's the ironic part of this, because I'm not a mathematician at all, but just kind of hacking through it, made up my own variables. You see the same patterns, and they line right up with physics itself. So what I kept seeing in the pattern was, well, you have a singularity, and then it expands until it gets to this corrupt point where it can't sustain itself. And then just like cell growth, kind of the cell division as it splits off. Well, is it a good copy or a bad copy? In your cell, some cells are bad. I don't know what the percentage is, but every day you have cells that just aren't right, or the DNA is wrong, or something. Something's not right, so your body just sloughs it off. So that's just normal. Your body does that. So everything else is analogous to that too. You get cancerous cells, everything's like that. So you take it to whatever system you want to look at. So government's a good one. You start out with the expansion. Well, what do you get? Well, you get a certain number of people, and things just kind of fall apart after. I think it's like 150 people, something like that. They say that's how many people you can maintain trust relationships with on a long-term basis. Much bigger than that, and then people start organizing because they have to, because they can't trust their inner circle is smaller than the group. So all of a sudden there's a different trust relationship, whatever that is. And generally it's distrust. They have different interests. That's why you can't trust them. Besides the limits on your brain, I don't know. I think they're still looking at that stuff. But
well,
anyway,
what's the idea now? It's
the singularity, then you get out to an expansion to a point where they can't sustain themselves, and then it collapses into, the chaos, and then someone makes order out of chaos, and there's chaos, that ripple effect. So it's sort of a, up and down, and sometimes it's wild because you get these wild wars or these plagues, and there's massive changes, but it happens automatically with any population in any system, it seems like. So I guess my question is, what do you call that effect? Kind of that ripple, expansion, contraction effect of the universe itself, and then it goes right to the human level, population level. That same bang, pop, or expansion, contraction.
Well, there's this idea I keep coming back to, that everything is a cycle.
Yeah.
So it's sort of an axiomatic It's a different frame axiomatically where you understand cycles as entities and as beginnings and ends as being things that are more or less arbitrarily imposed, branch points in these cycles, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I don't know what you call that, and that's why you're awesome.
It's called the cyclicity of the cosmic mind.
Ah, beautiful.
So,
so that's where we're at.
The largest cycle is on the order of trillions of years. And that's your basic cycle. That's the one that interfaces with the primordial state, right? So the state from whence everything comes and the state to whence everything goes is the same state. It's a primordial, and physically speaking, you're talking about the ds equals 0 state. So the differential entropy is 0, i.e. entropy is not changing in any direction.
Right. Yep. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I think that's clear to me now.
So you think of the ds equals 0 state as an abstract concept that ultimately is an impossibility because we have this sort of certitude that entropy always increases. So like no matter how entropic something gets, it can always get more entropic. So there's a tremendous amount of vibrational motion as this maximum entropy state, it's theoretical maximum entropy, like sort of, I guess you can think of it as like a, neutron star, or I think it's just basically a neutron soup. And the cycle of that cosmic matter is like trillions of years. And so that's like the biggest cycle. And then everything else is precipitated as a cycle within that super cycle.
Okay.
And there are parallels, to draw with ancient teachings where they're talking about like a year of Brahma as being like, or a minute of Brahma as being like, I won't go into the whole thing, but there are parallels. Yeah. And essentially what it has to do with is dividing up known space-time events into parameters such as to predict their physical behavior. So it's basically it's a difference in philosophy, whereas instead of going with starts and stops, you're going with cycles and sort of like intracycles and story. I don't know exactly how to put into words, but I guess there's a philosophical divergence between the two standpoints. And what you're saying is, well, we should do the cycles because cycles is everything. Yeah. I think.
Yeah. Well, that's instead of the stops and starts, you're going from a stick shift civilization to an automatic is what you're doing with this. A Tesla. Because it's just differential. There's one single gear. You just step on the gas or not. And if you let go, it slows down. So it's with the ability to poll people instantaneously anytime. And it doesn't have to be everybody. It just has to be voluntary. And it incentivizes the person because, look, this is legit. This is a real vote. Oh, you wanted to vote? Well, here you go. If you want to vote, this is the way to do it because it's live, it's real time. It's not the government. It's just an independent agency that tracks people if you want, totally voluntary. So you take a poll on anything, anywhere, and you have a poll at almost zero cost, and you get real time data, and then you just put it on a scatter plot. What color? Are you happy about it? Purple. Just a little bit? Well, put blue. Just you don't even care, or you care enough to hit the button. So that means one thing. So that means green, meaning I'm satisfied with the way things are, whatever. No, everything's good at green, or you're really happy at the, and then mad is red, of course. So instantaneous, light up the screen. Okay, in the United States, who likes there, and put in anything you want, right? So you put in, how do you like your fire department? Well, there it is. And the people that aren't happy, where are they? Where are the red pixels? Where are all the blue pixels? Oh, the blue pixels are all happy. This whole area is all blue pixels. But you go over here in this area and it's all red pixels. Well, what happened? Why do you have that? It's a dashboard for humanity, real time, that anybody can see at the whole wide world 24/7. So what would you put on there? What information would you ask for? If you could do that, and we can. If I If I can get the right guys together, we should have it done here in a couple days. So what would you ask? If you could know anything, what would you ask? What would you want to know? Because now you got pure
If you
data.
know anything, what would you want to ask? The question is ill posed, because if you know everything, you know how to get people to do what you want. And so it's a question of what do you want people to do, which is usually to come to the same conclusions that you do, but realizing also that you can't force people to virtue. You cannot force people to be virtuous. You can, at best, you can curtail vices, but forcing virtue seems to be counterproductive.
No, yeah, and then here's the trick. If virtue itself is rewarding, then it'll be more attractive by itself. So how do you make virtue more valuable than vice? That's the question, right? I'm sorry. Is that better? Hello?
Black.com. He's Alan Dove on Twitter. Thank you, Alan. See you next week.
Thank you. Take care.
Happy trails.
Stay safe.
You know, it would be really weird to go back to all audio. I've gotten used to looking at you guys.
We don't have to
do that. I don't want to do that.
We don't have to. I had always planned to one day make TWIV video.
I'm sorry, I'm getting kind of computery bad noise there. Try talking. Or are you talking? How about that?